Welcome to Core Concepts. I'm your host, James Renford Powell. This program is sponsored by One Community, the Institute of Applied Metaphysics, and the Church of Revelation. This is a program where we invite religious and spiritual leaders to come tell us what they believe, why they believe it, and what they're doing about it. In other words, how did they come to that belief system, and how is it manifesting in their lives? And if you go to youtube.com, which you probably have if you're viewing this show, at Renford Broadcast Network. You can see the show. You can also link to the Institute of Applied Metaphysics website, which is IAM-COR.org. There you can view the virtual campus of the Institute, the courses that are available, the books that are available, etc. at that site. I want to today introduce you to Dr. Kaia Naantaanbuu and Omar Baruti, and they're going to be talking not so much about a particular religion, but about Kwanzaa, which is a kind of unifying organization for African Americans. So I want to welcome you folks and go ahead and take on. I'll let you talk. Whoever wants to talk first, just take off. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us. As the host introduced us, my name is Dr. Kaia Naantaanbuu. I'm president of Memphis Kwanzaa International, which was founded over 34 years ago by my mother, the late RBR Naantaanbuu. And the whole goal and purpose was to introduce and bring culture to Memphis, Tennessee. Kwanzaa, meaning first fruit, is the foundation for which Africans in America can embrace and learn of the culture, something that was lost. All too, we are separated due to religion, and yet we lack culture. So that's what Kwanzaa is all about. And the Memphis Kwanzaa Culture, Health, and Education Center is a facility in South Memphis by which we actually teach and educate our people about the African culture, something that we lost, which was devastating and has kept us separated. And with lack of culture is the root really of all of our concerns, health issues wise, etc. We can go on, but for what culture does for a race of people, that's something that Kwanzaa serves and offers to us. Brother, what would you like to move to?
Yeah. My name is Omar Baruti. I'm the Vice President of Memphis Kwanzaa International. I've been a member of Kwanzaa for somewhere around 27 years. And Kwanzaa has been a very pivotal thing in my life because our people who came over here as slaves lost everything.
Yes.
They lost their name, their culture, their religion. They lost their way of worship, their folkways, their mores. They lost everything. They were stripped down to nothing. And then when they were released from slavery, nothing was restored back to them. They were just released into oblivion, and they're still suffering from that condition that they were subjected to for over 300 years. I just returned recently from a trip to Seattle, Washington. I went there so I could teach parents how to be parents, because I'm a foster parent, as well as a parent of 8 children of my own. And in the past 8 years, we've had 23 foster children come through our home. And one thing I noticed was that the children are there for the most part because of parenting skills or lack thereof. And one thing they emphasize in the class is that a child must be connected to his culture. And in the black experience, the culture has been destroyed. And so Kwanzaa is a way for us to reconnect back to our culture so we can have identity and rootedness. And because we don't have it, then we have all the social ills that we see expressed in the black community. And so when we celebrate Kwanzaa, even though it's just 1 week in the calendar year, from December the 26th to January the 1st, it really should be an everyday experience so we can get our people back to the culture that was taken from us. And so Kwanzaa is that force with those principles that unify us back to the homeland, back to our values, back to our rootedness, so we can do what other people do, because the Italians are rooted to their Italian culture. You know, the Irish are rooted to their Irish culture.
Yes.
We're not rooted in it. We call it the American culture, but it's really not the culture that we had when we came over here. And that culture was what kept us together. That culture is what made families and tribes. That culture is what made, you know, made civilized behavior. And so those things have been stripped. We're trying to put them back through Kwanzaa.
How can Kwanzaa assist in replacing the African American culture, and why isn't religion considered culture?
In some societies, religion and culture is like a hand in glove. When I was in Africa, and I just got back from Gambia, which is a predominantly Muslim country, the cultural attire and what the women wear depicts that of what a Muslim woman should dress because she's covered if she's married. There's a certain attire that says that you are a Gambian woman, or if you're a Ghanaian woman, and the religion is separate. But also, for instance, in Gambia, is the everyday life because the culture depicts the religion in terms of the people. For instance, like what Brother Omar is wearing is a traditional attire for a West African man. Does this mean that Brother Omar is a Muslim? No, it does not. Because in Gambia there were Christians, there were Muslims, but they still wore this attire. So, but then it's also that the same attire that the men wear to the mosque for Jummah prayer on Fridays. They dress for the occasion, the women as well. So it's very hard to separate that, but the fact that you can look at him in his attire and say, yes, I know that this is an African attire, a West African attire, is very obvious. It doesn't indicate that that's his religion. And that's why Kwanzaa is so important, because we have so many different diverse religions that Africans in America have been embracing due to slavery, because whatever your slave master was, that's what he taught his slaves to be. Whether if he was Presbyterian, Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, it doesn't matter. His slaves were indoctrinated on the plantation because he set the churches up on the plantation. So with Kwanzaa, it is an umbrella by which you can lay down your religion and embrace your culture, because that's what unifies people. That's what makes the community and the existence of a people continue to exist, is through culture. And when I was in the Gambia, I was so surprised because I saw so many different diverse people. But what was so ironic was when I saw a Chinese restaurant in Gambia. And you knew when you drove down the street that it was a Chinese restaurant. And what gives that appearance? One, he has the lettering of his language on the outside. The art decor of the building was very Chinese. And no matter where other ethnic groups travel in the world, they take their culture with them. He's serving Chinese rice, stir fry, whatever. You know that that's Chinese. And I'm saying, but we have embraced, even in, just to take it further home, when you decorate your home, you can visit the average African American's home and you might see Chinese art decor there. You may see some pictures, artifacts, etc., but you won't see anything African in that home. And there have been so many studies that have shown that even with the dolls, you give a black baby a doll, you give the white daughter a doll, and they're going to gravitate those that look towards them, except the black child. So why is that? And that's due to the lack of culture.
So perhaps we can explore the term culture. You know, from your perspective, what is culture?
I like to think of culture as the icing on the cake. When you think of clothing, even this attire that I have on, is a Gambian attire.
Clearly African.
It's totally African. It is your way of thinking. It is the essence in which your thought process follows with action. Culture is more than just clothing, food, but it's language. It's the way I relate to my significant other. It is the way that the family comes together and solve problems. It is the way that the family is structured, and that you have father, mother, sister, brother, and it's the village concept that raises the child. It's more than just dancing and drumming, because a lot of the instruments that we know of as the banjo today came from Africa, the balafon. We could go on and on. But when you think about the richness of the land called Africa, to which our people came from, it gave the world civilization. So why is it that we don't embrace our culture? And that goes back to what Brother Omar said. Due to slavery, what we lost in that transatlantic slave trade.
And not only do we lose it, we keep getting misled and led away from it, because the culture that you see practiced among most of our people today is not our culture.
Yes.
Our children sagging their pants, that's not our culture.
Yes.
That's, the blunts that they spoke, that's not our culture.
Yes, yes.
That's something that's rooted in America, but it's not rooted in the homeland of Africa. But that's what the media give us, and then we embrace it, because the media is a powerful force in this country.
Yes.
And if you listen to the media and you just accept it for what it is, you accept it without questioning it, then you're going to be led in a path that it might really be to your detriment. What you have to also look at too is that when you put culture besides religion, often, most of the time, culture is going to outweigh religion. Because if your religion, for example, in Christianity, I used to be a Baptist Sunday school teacher. In Christianity, we teach, and I taught, that you should love your enemies and turn the other cheek. But how many times do Christians in America turn the other cheek? Your culture says if somebody say don't hit nobody, don't start a fight. But if somebody hits you, you should do what?
Hit them back.
Hit them back.
Hit 'em back.
That's your culture. But that's against your religion. Culture will trump religion 7 days a week. Because we really follow culture, religion is secondary. So if we don't have our culture, which we don't have, then we would respect our community. If you go to Mother Africa, we say, the things that we have here, the poverty is what causes the crime and the violence. But go to Mother Africa, where they have plenty of people in poverty. They have nothing. They don't lock doors. They don't worry about women being raped. Some don't even have jails.
That cobwebs.
So if these people who are just as poor and poorer than African Americans in America, then what is the cause of crime? It's because they have their culture intact.
Yes.
And we've lost our culture. We've been swept into this thing that we call the American culture, which in some instances anything goes if you can get away with it. Justice is for sale to the highest bidder.
Have you found that there's a lot of opposition to Kwanzaa from the black Christian community? Because that is a culture in itself.
It is.
It is so different from white Christian churches as the black churches. What kind have you been able to work with black ministers, or are they in opposition to what you're doing?
Well, I want to address that because Dr. Hutchison was a minister, and one thing that I am just proud of the fact that if you education suffices ignorance. It erases ignorance and bigotry. When you know who you are, and Dr. Hutchison is a prime example of an educated man who's been indoctrinated with Christian doctrines, and when you talk to him, you would think, is he really a Christian? But to answer your question, yes, we have. But it's hard even for them, because even this last Kwanzaa, we had a minister to come. And one of the things that we require is that anyone who's on program has to wear their cultural attire. And for me, if you believe in the culture at some point in time, you put that down. It's just like the Jewish people, when it's Hanukkah time, you know that they are practicing Hanukkah based on recipes that they cook, things that they don't eat, the restrictions, and then the rituals that they perform during Hanukkah. But for us, it's difficult because they want to make it a spiritual event rather than cultural, especially during the part of the program when we perform libation. And libation is one in which we recognize our leaders for those who gave their lives for our mere existence today. When we recognize that, they want to say that that's spiritual. When in fact, it's really not, because we celebrate one of the biggest celebrations of Dr. King right here in this city. Here come April 4th, when he was assassinated here. And all the ministers come and gather those who didn't even know him during his time, didn't even appreciate or respect him during his time. But here you are, you see all these ministers gather and, you know, they are under this big banner. But when it comes down to the culture, they are just as ignorant to the fact because they don't even know. The only thing they've read is a certain set of doctrines. They've been indoctrinated, and they don't know anything other than what they've been put before them in the seminaries. So you have to be a well-rounded person. When I was going through school, history and math was my favorite. Was my favorite subjects. I had to take on a whole new different attitude towards history. And I developed a kindness for it because my parents insisted that we read. My mother, who was an activist, human rights activist here in Memphis, I could go on, I don't even want to get into that, but long story short, my parents insisted that we read. So every Sunday morning, we had to sit down and tell my father and my mother books of what we read. That was our Sunday ritual after we said prayer and so forth. So when I was participating or was attending a school, this was before busing, right here in Memphis. I had a teacher say, okay, you can write a book report, and any choice. So I selected Malcolm X because Malcolm was my mentor. And this teacher was not aware of who he was, and she really couldn't grade my paper, so she gave me an F. And so that started a whole new chain of events that during this time, you can imagine, we were crossing from the black neighborhood until it was only 6 of us in the high school, right here at East High School before busing in the 60s. I'm the only black kid in the class with a large afro and being poked at and made fun of. But it was because of that enrichment of knowing who I was that I was able to stand my ground. But getting to the teacher, my mother had to come back to the class and say, you said any book, and if you don't know of this author, you need to read so then you can grade my daughter's paper objectively. And you see, so with that richness of knowing who you are and reading outside of the normal stereotype, because my mother was a Sunday school teacher. She was Brother Omar's Sunday school teacher at a Baptist church, right, at Early Grove, right here in Binghamton. So I was indoctrinated with those teachings as well, but here again, my scope and horizon was beyond that of the regular day-to-day courses that you would read in school, in which there was nothing to enrich my cultural background or my history background. So that came from my parents, but I was fortunate. Brother Omar had some day-to-day living experiences that he could talk about. But if it was because of that transitioning of learning about culture and learning about who I was, that these ministers today, they lack that. And so it's just ignorance perpetuating ignorance.
You know, as you mentioned Dr. Hutchinson, one of our other speakers, you know, when we do Kwanzaa, we talk about the history and the richness of the African culture.
Yes.
And when we go back, as Dr. Leakey said, there have been bones that were uncovered that date back over 2 million years that belong to African people. And when you mention that, you know, in every part of the earth, the African existed prior to any other race of people being there. Even in America, the oldest bones found were 11,000 years old. They were found in Eugene, Oregon, and they belonged to an African. But when you talk about that history, some of our ministers, like the one that we had recently, we talk about a history that goes back millions of years, and we say that the black man is the original man. He is original, which means he came first. Then when the minister says, he goes from the scripture, he says, well, and if you go to the scriptures, you're going to go back and you start counting from today, 2013, and go back, you want to go back 6,000 years. And so he's saying that the original man was 6,000 years ago, not 2 million years ago. So you have a conflict between actual fact and religion. Yeah, you have a historical conflict, and so it's hard for him to digest some things that we teach. And that's because it's based on scripture. But like Dr. Hutchinson, he says somewhere back then, God created man. We don't know when.
Could you give us a brief on the 7 spiritual or 7 points of Kwanzaa, because I think that would be helpful to our viewers.
The first day of Kwanzaa, when we celebrate Kwanzaa, we have something called a kanara, which is a candle holder, and it has 7 candles on it. In the very middle of that candle holder, and it looks kind of like the same symbol that the Jewish people use when they celebrate Hanukkah. But in the middle of that candle holder is a black candle. And that black candle represents unity, or yamoja. And that's the unity of the family, not just in America, and not just, because, you know, in the black community, the family is destroyed. You have, you know, I just put together something I want to use for a billboard, but what it says that in a 9-year war, 2,019 soldiers were killed in Afghanistan. In an 84-year history period with the Ku Klux Klan, somewhere around 3,400 people, black folk, were killed by the Ku Klux Klan. But in black America, 3,500 people are killed, black people are killed every 6 months by drive-by shootings.
That we believe is a conspiracy.
That we believe is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
But again, we got to have unity in the family, right here in America, but also unity with our brothers and sisters from the homeland.
Yes.
Because a lot of times when they come over here, we treat them like they are strangers. We don't want to associate with them.
That's part of
And
it.
sometimes they feel like they're persona non grata. But that family unity has to start right here among ourselves in our own community, so we don't destroy our community. And then it has to extend across the waters to our brothers and sisters, because, you know, they were colonialized, we were kidnapped victims, but we all victims, all the same. So the first day of Kwanzaa, that black candle, is for unity of the family, because you can't unite with anybody else till first you unite among yourselves. And of course, the second day of Kwanzaa is the red candle. It's on the left, and normally it's on the far left, and that candle is called Kujichagulia, which means self-determination. And it's on the left, in the far left, because it's on the left side of the heart. That's the strongest side of your heart. And you got to have strength to be self-determined. And when we say self-determined, we mean the ability to name ourselves, the ability to organize our community and make things happen for ourselves. We got to do something for ourselves instead of waiting for a welfare check or waiting for some, you know, benefactor to come and do something for us. We got to do that. And so Kujichagulia, which represents struggle, and it represents the price we've already paid, the blood that we shed, the lives that we lost, trying to get to where we are today. And really, our children don't really appreciate the struggle that we went through. They feel like this is just handed to them. But I remember days when I would walk up to a restaurant and I had to go to the back door to get a hamburger. And I would stand in the rain sometimes and give my money and wait for them to bring it out to me. But I remember getting on the back of the bus, even though I paid the same fare that everybody else paid. In fact, I remember when the integration took place. I was a student at Lemoyne, and I was getting on the front of the bus, going to sit down in the long bench seat, and somebody put their foot across the seat, so I couldn't, and that was the only seat that was on the bus that was still available. And I asked the bus driver, would you please ask the gentleman to move his foot? He didn't do it. I rode all the way downtown, standing up, after I paid my fare.
Yes.
But I remember those days. Our children don't remember them. And because they don't, and we don't tell them, then they feel like this was always like this. But that struggle had to come. And so that red candle represents the suffering, the bleeding, the dying, all the struggles that we went through, not just through slavery, but even after slavery, the Jim Crow laws. Even what we're doing today. If you look at today, right at the eve of Civil War, there were around 280,000 freed black people in this country. They had about 1/2 or 1% of the wealth in this country. Here we are in 2013 with 43 million black people. We still have about 1/2 or 1% of the wealth of this country. On the eve of the Civil War, we made up about 51% of the prison population. I mean, among the free people that were in jail, in prison, we were about 51% of that population, not the ones who were slaves. Today, in 2013, we're still about 51% of those people who are in prison today. It's almost like time stood still. The advancement that we thought we made has been negated. So
I'll just,
Yes, he was the third principle.
the third principle is Ujima.
Ujima, collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together, to make our brothers' problems and our sisters' problems our problem, to work together to solve those problems. The fourth day, Ujima, cooperative economics. And I love cooperative economics because we have to teach our children to do for self, to create our own jobs. Corporate America now is saying the job rate is, there are no jobs.
Yes.
So what do we do to create jobs for ourselves? We have lost that. We depended upon others to do for us for what we can do for ourselves. Nia, to have purpose, to build collectively, developing our communities, to restore our people to the greatness in which they had. Kuumba, creativity, to be able to come up with something. I was in Gambia and these two young men made a collage for me. And they took some little bitty beads. They didn't have it much, but they took some little bitty beads. One drew the picture, and the other one took the beads and took time to place those beads to come up with this beautiful picture of two birds on a branch. They didn't have anything to make a frame. And how creative were they to take matchsticks? You know, when you burn a match, you have the little brown tip and then the little white wood part. They took all those matchsticks and made a frame. I said, creative. Take something and make something great out of it. And that's what our people are. And then to have faith in ourselves, to believe in ourselves that we can do better.
Yes.
We must do better to save ourselves and our children and our future, because our children are our future. And right now, our young people, it is just, we're the menace to society by design. And so how do we get that back? And with all the churches built in the community, and you have them in the black communities, 5 on a block, something is not working with this process. If something is really, really wrong, and I hear all the educators talk about, oh, we need more books, we need this, we need that, but when you get down to the core of the true educational process, our children have been miseducated. And I look at the two men who back in, with the question between W. Du Bois and George Washington Carver, and their perceptions of what we as a race of people should be doing.
Right.
Some of the educators, they sided with W. Du Bois. Others sided with Carver, but it takes both.
it was both.
And that division that was plagued at our people during that time, because then there was a political struggle going on. And then you had Marcus Garvey, who was saying, we need to go back to Africa because this is not happening here in America for us. And Marcus Garvey really is the founder of, when I think about Kwanzaa, that really planted that seed that we should go back to Africa, not literally, but mentally. We need to free ourselves from mental slavery. Because if you are still mentally enslaved, you're not going to embrace and get up and do any of these 7 principles that we teach during Kwanzaa. And so for that reason, I was so thankful that Dr. Malanga Karinga came up with the concept of Kwanzaa. Does it represent the total African culture? No, it does not. But at least it gives us a foundation by which we can embrace and start this dialogue and start and practicing these principles and teaching our children these principles so that our communities would be better, that the crime rate would go down, the infant mortality rate would go down. The same problems that exist in this country, in our community, is in Africa as well.
Yes.
And it was so disheartening to me because I'm a healthcare professional, to go and visit some of the hospitals there. And I came back and I said, Brother Omar, with all that our people went through, the health care, just even in a country of the poorest, and here we have the best, and yet we still have the highest incidence of obesity. HIV is rampant among our people between the ages of 13 and 25 years old. And it's going up with a bullet. It's going down in other ethnic groups, but it's still going up in our ethnic groups. So somewhere Christianity, Islam, all of these institutions of religion have failed us. Morally, look at us, the moral fiber of our people. It's something really, really wrong with this picture. So I challenge them to come to the table, because it has to be a new way of teaching in order for us to make some transition. Yes.
So would you say then that the creation of Kwanzaa by Dr. Maulana Karinga is enclosed in the Nguzo Saba,
Yes.
Swahili words, would you say they are spiritual in their essence? I mean, not that they would take the place of the church, but I mean,
I think it could complement, because religion really is supposed to teach you morals and principles by which you live by. And not necessarily to say that you have to be a Christian, you have to be Catholic, Protestant, etc. But it's at least the humanly man side of one human being to another. That's what religion is supposed to do for you. Culture is something totally different. And when I look at our picture, I say religion has failed us. And we've embraced all kinds. I think we are the most religious people on the planet Earth. And we live in a community right here in Memphis. Let's look at Memphis. This is the Bible Belt of the South. You have all these churches, but why do we still have lynching taking place that happened not even 2 years ago? The hate crimes that are happening in this country still today. Just to take it, why would the KKK still exist in this country if we were so religious? So religion hasn't helped us. It has not. Dr. King was a very religious man, and he gave his life, right? He laid it down right here in Memphis, Tennessee. So, for me and ministers, that's a soft spot, so. Yes.
I have two questions. One, what is that language you're using to title things?
Those 7 principles of the Nguzo Saba is Swahili.
Okay.
And we were even asked one time, why did they choose a Wolof for us, Mandinka, Tree, or some of the other languages? And I think back during the 60s, Swahili was one of the most universal languages that's spoken in Africa. And of course, that's one of the languages that we'll be teaching at the center, Swahili, Wolof, French, because we want to help educate the young people at least something of the culture in those two languages.
Yeah, it should be in a language I have to know.
Yes.
And then I think, religion is an adjunct to the home. It has to be in the culture has to arise from the family. And the family has to tell the children their background, who you are, what was in your culture in the past. Because if they want to, they can look it up, the different tribes, and many times you can kind of define the tribes to some degree, or what part of Africa. But the mother is it's in this culture now. The black mother is the burden we carry. She can't do everything. She's working, but it's her that's got to teach those children, and hopefully a father too. So it's the home out of which the culture arises.
When you talk about the mother and her role, this absence of the father has come about over a period of time, but it started in slavery.
Yes.
Because
they were separated.
Yeah, they were separated, and you couldn't even protect your wife as a slave.
Or your child.
Or your child. Whatever the slave master decided to do, that was done. You didn't have any say in the matter. And I remember coming up, even though we were very poor in Binghamton, I mean very poor. I remember, living in a shotgun house, 11 children in a 1-bedroom shotgun house, taking a bath on the back porch. But it was our house, we were buying it. And I remember that even though we were poor, we didn't know we were poor. We would leave home and go to church, we didn't lock any doors.
Right.
But then at that time, somewhere around 70% of the homes had a mail in the home. And when you got out of order, the whole neighborhood
Yes.
took charge of you.
That's right.
Everybody could say something to you and put you back on track. And now you have out of wedlock births, somewhere around 70 to 80% of the homes are headed by a female. And you're right, she can't do it by herself. But she's the first mother, the first
Yeah, she
teacher.
has to
But the
start
father has to
teaching.
be there too.
Yeah, and then I know that you do this. Kwanzaa has to teach the people that mother, if you're just the only one there still at night, you can say, this is the way it was when we were, and you know, like happened in our family. We always heard both sides.
Yes.
This is this and that's and our
Yes,
side.
yes,
So that's the way it has to start. It's
Yes.
there.
yes.
But then how does the mother get the information? Where does the education stop and start for her, you see?
Yeah.
And that's why during Kwanzaa, when my mother started celebrating Kwanzaa years ago, we started out in a little small cafe in North Memphis, and it was only 10 or 15 of us at that time. And now Kwanzaa is celebrated all over the United States, but still the concept of Kwanzaa, still to this day, you could ask the average African in America, and they have no concept or clue as to what Kwanzaa is. They made it a substitute for Christmas. They made it a spirit or religion. And it's none of those things. And it's something that, it's a foundation that we can grow on. One of the goals for Memphis Kwanzaa is that we connected internationally. Our committee consists of people from Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, I could go on, and we come together and learn from each other, and that's the only way that we'll be able to rebuild that self-esteem in our children, is to know, for them to know and learn of their greatness. Because if you teach a child he's nothing, oh you are nothing, you this or you that seed is implanted in them. When I was a school teacher, and I substituted in this Memphis City School years before I was accepted in pharmacy school. And one of the things that I found that was so draining for me is that I would have to motivate the children first to the importance of their education and why they're here before I could get them to learn. By that time, half of the school hours, the class period is over. But once I got them motivated, it was up. They didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
They would want to skip their other classes and come to my class. So what was I doing differently than the other teachers were not doing? They would give me the worst class. And the principal would come to the class and I would be sitting in the seat with the students, and she would be looking around looking for me, and she's like, I don't believe you have this classroom under control. But it was because I approached the children about their greatness. You see?
But what the black people need to do, even if there's only one mother and 5 children, is that we are important to each other. It's our home, it's our family. And out of this comes our culture, because this is the things we do together. Eating and sleeping and caring for our home and making sure each child is cared for. Families are the key.
I agree.
You know, if you took a person who, for example, if an astronaut went into space and came back, like he went to the moon and came back, you can't get a reporter to put a microphone in his face as soon as he comes off the aircraft. First thing they want to do is make sure he's in his right mind. And after he's been debriefed, then you can interview him. Now, we come out of slavery out of our minds. And we still out of our minds today. And that injury that we suffered is still there, although we look normal and look sane, we operate like insane people.
Exactly.
We got to be put back whole again, and then we can go and operate as worthy members of society. We're not there yet.
Yes.
You didn't finish the 7 points, did you?
Yes, I did. The Umoja, the first day principle, Kuchichakaleo, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kuumba, and Imani. Those each day, that's 7 days, and we celebrate each principle for each day, and we talk about it, and we talk about and educate our people to the history of their greatness and culture. And then we have dancing, traditional food, music, and even art. Those are the components that make culture. And a religion, if we knew what our true religion was. When we look back in history, and we were discussing this yesterday, where are we in the Christian Bible? Where are we in the Quran? We're definitely not in the Torah, and we're definitely not in the Indian religious. So where are we? What happened to us? You see, so those issues, I guess we weren't even thought of. But the way that even we were taught on the plantation has been the descendants of one of those characters, and he was Ham. He was the cursed race, and you were supposed to be subservient to the others. So when you are taught that, and that's indoctrinated, and even to go in the black church, and you walk up on the wall and you see a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus, and you are taught to worship that this is the one that's going to save you, and if he doesn't look like you and me, then that's a problem with that. So, all that plays psychologically on your mind, and then to know how we were indoctrinated. How did we get these names that we have? Because you were a property of your slave master. See, and when you start teaching that sort of education, they're not going to teach you that in the seminaries, because they don't know who you are themselves. But some of them don't.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them really know who you are, but they don't want you to know, because if they know if you know, then you can eradicate a lot of these problems that we have, and they really don't want that. I'm thoroughly convinced that it's by design.
And actually, if you took these 7 Kwanzaa principles, you could change the entire world, not just the black people,
Yes.
the entire world around. We just practice these 7 principles. But because, like for example, we talked about cooperative economics. Right now, we got corporations that rob countries, rob whole countries for their resources. But if we had cooperative economics and gave people a fair price for their resources, then we have peace in the world. Right now, there are 194 countries on Earth. We have a military base in 130 of them, but not by invitation. But if we had cooperative economics, we could easily exchange resources for other things, and we'd have a world that's basically a world of peace. But now we've got war on so many fronts, we can't even count all the fronts that we're fighting on. And people are dying every day because we don't practice these principles. Not just in the streets of America, but in every street, in every major city, in every major country in the world.
And I think we keep making reference to this, a comment on how the culture has shifted, and being, the age that I am, I witnessed to the shift, contrary to popular thought that it's not going to be televised, it does have its meaning in the television. You can literally chronologically track the shifting of the culture when we were our children, how we responded to each other, how our parents responded to us, how our community responded to us, and they all relate to Kwanzaa, the principles of unity, creativity. All of that was inculcated in our upbringing. But the shifting started to take place, and it was a silent shifting. It was like, you almost had to know that something was going on from a power that was greater than what we knew about, because crack came into our community, and like some of the younger people say, when you interview them, they literally say, we don't have boats and ships to go over and get these drugs.
Yes,
So where's the stuff? Who's dropping it in our community?
Exactly.
We're not stuck on stupid here. So the cultural shifting started in the late 40s and 50s, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came on the scene. There was a lot going on, but I'm in the process now of looking at how to put that into place chronologically, so that we can really, really look at that shift.
When you have a media like we have in this country, that's controlled by 5 conglomerates, it's easy to shift culture. If I keep putting out there that this is how you do things, like when you have children that eat sweet cereal, which is no good for them.
Sure.
And after a while, they beg mom for sweet cereal because they feel like, everybody else is doing it. And when I talk to boys that are sagging their clothes, why do you sag your clothes? and showing your underwear in the crack of your butt. It's the style. Who gave you the style? Well, it's Gucci Mane. It's all these rappers they give us as heroes, and so I'm copying off of them. But whatever the style, blunt, smoking them, it's a style. Our children are being manipulated through the media into some deteriorating culture that's not ours. But unless we got a strong family foundation, like you were talking about, we're going to lose them.
But it's for you to say that too, and I'm noticing even young Caucasians are adapting to that loud
Yes.
boom, 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 boom
Yes,
music.
yes.
They're sagging their pants. They are, I don't know if it's in rebellions or retaliation, because I can remember back in the 60s when it was the hippie syndrome, and it was young white America protesting against their traditional standards of what they thought was what their parents were doing. And so this was their way of rebelling. And now those same hippie children have cut their long hair, put their suits back on, and now they're right in step with corporate America, for whom their parents, for which they were taught, and it's set up for them. But at the same time, I'm seeing that even when I see a young Caucasian try to dread his hair, I'm thinking, okay, that is the same. If you twist that around, that is exactly what happened to our young people when they look at these movies and we glorify the gangsters of America, the cops and robbers, the ones that stole back in the Getty times. You know, they glamorized the mafia and all these movies that Hollywood was producing about what's going on in our community, the crack houses, the heroin houses, and it was easy to sell this poison to your people, and then you live this glamorous lifestyle. So there was no movie set up in our community that showed Dr. Drew who formulated blood plasma. They don't have those type movies, so that's why we say it's by design. Because it took the greatness of the one family figure doing the Jeffersons and the Huxtables, which was a positive Bill Cosby, which was a positive reinforcement, and replaced that with all of the hip hop and all of this other madness. And so this is what we have today.
You know, when I went to that parenting workshop, and there were people there from Canada, from all over the country, and they were talking about the trends that they see coming. And some of them were trying to figure out how to deal with the trends, because we got to deal with the parents that are going to be. But the main thing that stood out was the trend that's coming now is teenagers being allowed to drink alcoholic beverages in the parents' home with the parents' permission. That's the trend that's coming. And some parents are saying in the group, these are therapists, some of these are doctors.
Wow.
But they're saying, what do you do with it? Because they're going to drink it somewhere. Well, why would they drink it somewhere? Because they can't buy it anywhere.
In the period after the Civil War, and at many points, you know, there was not, like you say, a lot of wealth in the black community. Now you have a lot of very affluent black entertainers, black sports figures, black businessmen. What are you getting from them? Is there anything coming from these people who've got theirs that's supporting Kwanzaa?
I can't say, we haven't personally, our organization received any, but I was looking at a special about this young man. He has the music name 50 Cent. 50 Cent sold drugs. He went to prison. He got out. He made his money off hip hop singing, and you listen to some of those lyrics, they're very demoralizing of women, and it's very filthy. They use belligerent language, but he made his money off of that. But a light bulb came on, and he invested that money into a sports drink, vitamin water, made him a multimillionaire overnight. Does he have the love in his heart for his people to go out and create an institution that will create some jobs, reinvest back into the community? That is the big question. And that's what Magic Johnson, who had a meeting with a lot of those very people that you're talking about, say, will you be a millionaire 10 years from now? What have you done to give back to your community? these are the very people that made you who you are, so what are you doing to give back? And that is the big question, and we really need their help, because we need banking systems. Right now, it is the worst. You can't even get a loan if you're a struggling a family member trying to get better your condition, even to start a business. There are so many red lines against poor black entrepreneurs who are trying to start out. You don't get that support. Even our hospital, there's so many the mental health places that have closed down. They're in our community. Particularly, let's talk about South Memphis. The mental health center, even the health center that the people can walk to the community and get health care. Those are closed. So now if you can't get a bus to get down to some clinic that's 20 or 30 or 40 miles away, even a decent grocery store. These ills plague our community, and none of our leaders are addressing these issues.
And there are not enough grassroots people, with consciousness to assist with it. There's just not, there's a lot of people like that think like we do, but there's not a lot of them. So, we're just stretched to the limits. We're trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do.
We need some people like 50 Cent and those of his type to give back.
I recently saw an interview of Snoop Dogg. I think it was Charlie Rose or one of the well-known interviewers, and he went back through his history and everything else, and I mean, he seems like a man with a very different attitude, and so I'm just seeing it here and there. I wondered if any of them were getting involved with Kwanzaa at all.
Most of our funding in times past have come from Allstate Insurance and Walmart.
Really?
Those are the two companies that they...
And that's because I worked there, and I just retired 2 years ago, next month. But they would give it to us because I was an agent working for a nonprofit.
We have to
Now,
ask.
why do you think that
You have to ask
Allstate
them.
and Walmart would be sympathetic?
What they did, they saw what we were doing and felt like that's a worthy cause, so let's put some money there.
I work for Walmart as well, and of course, part of the management requirement, because I am in management as well, is that we have to attend some type of diversity event. They require that, which I love. Walmart is one of the most diverse companies in corporate America today. Given that they may have some of their other issues, but I can truthfully say that Walmart is very diverse, and they respect the diversity in the company, because you can see all different types of people working for Walmart. If you go in there and shop, whatever neighborhood they cater to, if it's predominantly Hispanic, you can walk in there and find a lot of Hispanic products. So for that reason, they are interested in community service-based organizations who into job training, education, giving something back. And for that reason, I'm not just saying that because I work for the company, but I can truthfully say that even the culture, they are very diverse in that, and they are sensitive to that, so they do. Although they changed their way of donating, but they were one of our hugest donors that we received, and some from individuals as well.
Many individuals.
Julie and I have attended for several years the interfaith event here that's primarily motivated by Muslims. But there's usually Jewish people. We've had the ordinance here that were at the interfaith events. Actually, anything African is conspicuously absent from that. I mean, are you trying to make inroads with different religions, different faiths, different organizations like interfaith organizations?
We would love to. As a matter of fact, we have put together a summer program in which we need funding to subsidize 50 disadvantaged students from South Memphis to be able to come to the center, where they will get not only culturally groomed and educated to the culture, but they will be able to learn a foreign language. They will learn about different professions such as dentistry, pharmacy, medicine, etc. We will have professional people coming in. They will also get help with in a non-orthodox traditional classroom setting, within their English, math, and science, to how that they can use those basic tools to help character building and decide early on what they would like to be, to develop, to work towards, towards high school, college, and professional school. So we would love to partner with them, but because it's religious based and Kwanzaa is not, I had no idea that they would even be sensitive towards that, something of such.
You might have to use like the Rastafarian or something, or an African religion to make that entree.
Okay.
Could you please give, for the benefit of our viewers, your contact numbers, website, anything like that, where they could call and ask you about Kwanzaa and get and receive information, or a
Sure.
website in particular?
My name is Dr. Kaia Naantaanbuu, 901-210-1218. Memphis Kwanzaa Culture, Health, and Education Center is at 1549 Elvis Presley Boulevard, 38116, I'm sorry. We do have a website that is www.memphiskwanzaa.intl.org. And Brother Omar, contact number is 901-239-1555.
And it is answered 24 hours a day.
Now, we have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I would like if you guys could close out with whatever specific message that you would like to give to our viewers about possibly what they could do to get involved, or whatever you'd like to say. You have the time. You have the floor.
You know, right now we are looking for volunteers because as we expand the Kwanzaa Center, we're looking to do a workforce development where we can train persons who would ordinarily not be able to get a job, to do roofing, basic plumbing, basic wiring, sheetrock work, painting. We need people who can teach them how to do it. We'll supply the materials, and they'll supply the technology, the knowledge to do it. Because in our community, a lot of black people are unemployed because they have no skills. Some are unemployed because they had a felony 30 years ago. And they're still hunting them today, even though they paid the price, they're still paying the price. And we also have right now a collaboration with the University of Tennessee.
Yes.
But we have doctors who are coming in. I'll let you finish that part.
Where the center would be a public health center. People can come and get tested, HIV, receive some basic medical services for free. And we all know that with healthcare reform where it is now, a lot of people are unemployed. They don't have access to healthcare. So we want this center to be particularly that Monday through Thursday. Then we have the after-school program, the summer program for the children, and then we have cultural classes at night. So we are looking for volunteers, for retired teachers, if you have some time, or if you're a professional, that you would like to come in and speak to the kids about what you do, give hands-on and help motivate the children in your various areas of expertise. We're looking for that. Yes. We were fortunate to have some concerned citizens in the community that are not from South Memphis have partnered with one of our members to help supply school supplies. So we need everything, computers, medically we need cardiotech type equipment to test for cholesterol, we diabetes. The school has partnered with us to help to supply the manpower, but we also need the funding that goes along with it as well. So, and we are 501c3. All donations are tax deductible. And we just need to come together and take that concept of a village to raise a child.
I want to thank you, Brother Omar and Dr. Kaia for being with us today. It was very informative, it was very good. And want to remind you, if you're watching Core Concepts and you would like to be on the show or would like to talk about or introduce someone, then we're open to talk with anybody. All right, and to have them come on Core Concepts. I want to thank our hostess today, Jackie, is not available. She's out today, but I want to thank our cinematographer Cedric Moore for his
Yeah.
super work he's been doing. He has done every single show. Stick your head around here and say hello to thank you, Cedric.
All
Thank
right.
you. And thank all of you for being with us today on Core Concepts.
All right, all right.
Thank you.